Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Have you ever sat beside the person you love and felt more alone than if you were by yourself? Not because something dramatic happened, not because the relationship is falling apart, not because anyone did something so terrible that you can easily explain the ache. Somewhere along the way, the two of you became very good at sharing a life and not as good at sharing your souls. You may live in the same home, sit in the same room, sleep in the same bed, share the same responsibilities, and still feel a quiet distance that no one else can see. Because the bills are being paid, the plans are made, the responsibilities are handled, you may still care about each other. You may still laugh sometimes, but inside, there is a question you may not want to say out loud. When did I start feeling this alone in a relationship that looks this fine? That is the ache we are naming today. You are not ungrateful. You are not being dramatic. You are not asking for too much because your soul still longs to be seen. I'm back with another key to soul progress. And the next key is learning to recognize when loneliness inside a relationship is not just a relationship problem, but a soul signal calling you back to truth, honesty, and deeper love. We're focusing on healing the heart, growing the soul, and transforming our relationships through higher awareness, spiritual truth, and emotional honesty. In this love series, going into one of the quietest and most painful places for many midlife women, feeling alone in a relationship that feels fine. This episode is not about blaming your partner. It is not about deciding today whether you should stay or leave or confront or withdraw or pretend nothing is happening. This episode is about naming the drift. Because sometimes the most confusing loneliness is not the loneliness of being physically alone. It is the loneliness of being emotionally unseen by someone who is physically present. I want to make an important distinction because we have talked before about loneliness as a call back to God. That kind of loneliness is sacred, like standing alone in a quiet chapel and realizing your soul is longing for God. This episode is like standing at your kitchen or dining room table with someone you love and realizing there is a bridge between you that has not been crossed in a long time. One loneliness says, I need to return to God. This loneliness says, something true between us has gone silent. Both can be spiritual. Both can wake you up, but they are not the same. Today is relationship drift. Two people may still love each other, still function together, still share history, but no longer feel deeply connected. For many midlife women, this loneliness feels hardest to explain because it does not always look like loneliness from the outside. Let me paint a picture. In the beginning, there may have been aliveness, curiosity. You wanted to know what the other person thought. You wanted to share your day. You wanted to talk about what mattered. The sense of discovering someone else and being discovered by them. Then life happened. Beautiful life, demanding life, exhausting life. Children may have come, careers grew, bills multiplied, parents aged, health concerns appeared, responsibilities became heavier. So the calendar does fill up with activities, functions, events. However, you notice the conversations become shorter. And slowly, without either person deciding it, the relationship moved from discovery to management. You became good at handling life together. You became co-planners, co-problem solvers, co-survivors of the week. And practical love matters. Someone has to remember the appointments, buy the groceries, manage the budget. Someone has to check on the family and keep things moving forward. But practical partnership is not the same as emotional connection. You can be a good team and still not feel known. You can function well and still feel lonely. You can love someone and still miss them. This is relationship drift. Relationship drift is the slow emotional and spiritual distance that can happen when two people keep sharing responsibilities but stop sharing their inner lives. It sneaks in while you are busy being responsible. And one day you realize that most of your conversations are about what needs to be done, where someone needs to be, what needs to be paid, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be remembered. There is a moment when your soul notices the gap. Maybe you are sitting in the living room, both of you looking at different screens. Maybe you are eating dinner and the conversation feels thin. Maybe you are driving somewhere together and the silence between you feels empty. Maybe you're lying in bed beside one another and you're thinking, how can I be so close to someone and feel this far apart? That moment can feel frightening because it opens a question. Is this just a season, or is this what we have become? Let's take Claire. Claire is 52. She has been in her relationship for many years. From the outside, there's nothing obviously wrong. She and her partner are polite. They are responsible. They show up where they are supposed to show up. They know how to get through the week. And if you asked people who know them, many would probably say they seem solid. But Claire has started noticing something she cannot unnotice. Most of their conversations are logistical. Who is picking something up? Who paid the bill? What time they need to leave? What needs to be repaired? What has to be handled next? One evening, they're sitting in the same room. He is watching something. She is scrolling through her phone. Nothing bad is happening. But Claire looks across the room and feels a wave of sadness. She thinks, when did we become so quiet? Another voice comes in. It says, do not make this into something. You are fine. He's a good person. You have a good life. Other people have real problems. So Claire pushes the ache down. She tells herself to be grateful, but the ache returns. It returns when she has something meaningful to share and decides not to bother. It returns when she realizes she tells her friend more about her inner life than she tells the person she lives with. It returns when he asks, what's wrong? And she says, nothing, because explaining it feels too hard. And that is when Claire begins to understand something. The problem is that something inside her is waking up. There are 3 common forms this kind of trip can take. The first is the roommate version. This is when the household works, but the heart feels lonely. You share space. You may share routines. You may sleep in the same bed. You may eat in the same kitchen. But emotionally, you feel like you are living in separate worlds. The second is the parallel lives version. This is when both people are busy, capable, and decent, but moving in separate directions. There is no major explosion. There is no dramatic conflict. There is just distance. You update each other. You coordinate with each other. But you do not really enter each other's inner world. The third is the invisible woman phase. This is where she is there, giving, remembering, adjusting, helping, planning, supporting, and somehow she feels unseen. She is needed, but not deeply known. That distinction matters. Many midlife women know what it means to be needed. They are needed by family, work, aging parents, adult children, communities, partners, friends. But being needed is not the same as being seen. Being needed says, what would we do without you? Being seen says, who are you becoming? And this is where the ache becomes confusing, because a woman can be appreciated and still feel unseen. She can be respected and still feel emotionally alone. She can be loved in practical ways and still long for deeper soul connection. Soul is that substance of who you are, being connected and people getting into that inner world and that substance of who you truly are. That longing is not wrong. It is information. Now, we come to the part of the episode that may feel uncomfortable, but I want you to stay with me, because one of the biggest blind spots in relationship drift is that we begin with the question, why does he not see me? And that question may be valid. It may be important. It may need to be addressed. But there is another question. When did I stop bringing my whole self into this relationship? Let that sit for a moment. When did I stop bringing my whole self into this relationship? Not because the distance is all your fault. Not because you are responsible for carrying the whole relationship. Not because your partner has no responsibility. But because your soul growth asks you to look at the part of the pattern we are participating in. Over time, women begin editing themselves. They may stop sharing certain dreams because they feel impractical. You may stop talking about your soul life because your partner does not seem interested. You may stop naming your sadness because you do not want to be a burden. You may stop expressing disappointment because you do not want another hard conversation. And you may stop asking for tenderness because you do not want to feel rejected. I get it. So you become quieter, more efficient, more pleasant, more fine. But fine can become a hiding place. Claire began to see this. I tell him what happened in my day, but I do not tell him what happened inside me. She realized she had been giving reports, not invitations. She had been saying the meeting was long, but she had not been saying, I felt invisible in that room today. She had been saying, I'm tired, but she had not been saying, I feel emotionally worn down. She had been saying, everything's fine, but she had not been saying, I miss feeling close to you. And we have to look at what happened. We went from sharing intimacy and the freshness of the relationship, and over time, moving to being more logistical in the conversations. When we can reveal deeper issues within ourselves, invite the person to hear what we're trying to say, being patient and not stopping because you love this person and you want them to understand where you're at this stage of your life, where you were 30 years ago or 20 years ago or even 10 years ago or 5 years ago. It's not the same place of where you are now. If you're not sharing those inner thoughts and feelings, then how is a person going to know that there is a drift? That realization did not make the drift her fault. It made the drift more honest. We're not trying to blame. We're trying to be aware. Because honesty is where healing begins. When truthfulness steps forward. When we start sharing ourselves in a different way and not just coasting in our thoughts and in our feelings. So let's talk about Rebecca. Rebecca is in her early 60s. Her children are grown. The house is quieter now. This season is supposed to be more freer, but instead, she feels a loneliness she did not expect. She and her partner have a long history. They have been through a lot. They know each other's habits. They know the old stories. They know the family patterns. But Rebecca begins to wonder, does he know who I am now? She has changed. Her faith has deepened. Her questions are different. She thinks more about purpose, meaning, mortality, forgiveness, and the next season in her life. She is not the same woman who was 20 or 30 years ago. But when she tries to talk about the deeper things, he often gives a practical answer, or he changes the subject, or he listens politely, but does not really enter the conversation. Over time, Rebecca stops bringing those parts of herself to him. She talks to her sister about her fears. She talks to her friend about her spiritual questions. She prays, she reads, she finds nourishment in many places. But one evening, she realizes something painful. She has outsourced almost all of her emotional and spiritual life outside the relationship. And part of her says, he doesn't really understand these things anymore. But the deeper part of her asks a more honest question. Her soul is prompting her to move in a more honest and truthful way. Have I invited him into who I am becoming? Or have I already decided he cannot come? That question humbles her. There is a peace that comes from wisdom, and there is a quietness that comes from giving up. They are not the same. Wisdom feels grounded. Resignation feels heavy. Wisdom opens the heart. Resignation closes it. Wisdom says, I accept what is true, and I will respond from love. Resignation says, nothing will change, so why bother? And if you have confused resignation with peace, be gentle with yourself. Many women do, especially women who have spent years trying not to ask for too much. What if this ache is not here to shame you? Not you, not your partner. What if it is there to wake you? What if feeling alone in a relationship that looks fine is not automatically a sign the love is over, but a sign that love is being invited into a more truthful form? In the early years, love may ask, do you want me? In midlife, love asks, can you know me as I am now? You are not the same woman you were when the relationship began. He's not the same either. You have lived, you have carried things, you have lost things, you have survived things, you have learned things, and you have outgrown old roles, old silences, old ways of keeping peace. This woman you are now may be more spiritually awake, more honest, more tired of pretending, more aware that time is precious, more aware that comfort is not the same as connection. That does not mean the relationship is wrong. or has failed. It means the relationship may need truth. The soul does not disturb false peace to punish us. The soul disturbs false peace to bring us closer to God, closer to truth, closer to love that is real. There is a kind of peace that is holy. It has love in it. It has clarity in it. It has humility in it. It has freedom in it. But there is another kind of peace that is just silence. It is the silence of things unsaid, the silence of needs buried, the silence of one woman deciding it's easier to be low maintenance than honest. That is not spiritual peace. That is emotional hiding. And divine love does not ask you to disappear in order to keep the room calm. Divine love asks you to become more whole. That is why the ache matters. The ache may be saying there is more truth needed here. The ache may be saying you have been living beside each other, but not really with each other. The ache may be saying, do not let comfort become a substitute for communion. And the ache may be saying, before you ask to be seen, come back to the parts of yourself you stopped showing. That is where the work begins. Ask the Lord to help you to awaken your inner self, to be more fully present and more courageous to share those deeper parts of you. Ask your partner, because our partners need to know we are in a different phase, and therefore we have different needs. We have to let our partner know these things and get into a conversation. So now I want to be clear. This episode is not saying you can fix a relationship by yourself. You cannot create mutual alone. That's why I was saying inviting him in to the conversation. You cannot make another person emotionally available. You cannot force someone into depth. If you are in a relationship where there is abuse, intimidation, ongoing betrayal, cruelty, addiction, emotional danger, or pattern of harm, this episode is not asking you to simply communicate better. In most situations, safety, support, wise counsel, and clear boundaries matter. We need to reach out to appropriate resources and professional services for help. Spiritual growth never requires you to abandon your dignity. Many women are not in immediate danger. Instead, they are in drift. And drift asks for a different kind of courage. Not dramatic courage, not impulsive courage, soul courage. The courage to stop pretending you are fine when you are not. The courage to speak without blame. The courage to listen without collapsing. The courage to invite truth into the room and pay attention to what happens next. Because what happens next will give you information. If there is willingness, there may be a path. If there is avoidance, there may be work to do. If there is dismissal, every time you speak honestly, that is information. The spiritual path is not about denial. The spiritual path is truth with love. I want to give you 3 soul practices you can begin with this week. And the first practice is to name the longing. Before you say anything to your partner, say the truth to yourself. Sit quietly, take a breath, put your hand over your heart. Ask yourself, what am I actually longing for in this relationship right now? Not what is wrong with him, not should I stay or go. Begin with longing. You might write something down. For example, I'm longing for tenderness, or I'm longing for a conversation that is not about task, or I am longing for spiritual companionship. I am longing to laugh together again. I am longing to stop feeling invisible. Longing becomes clearer when you stop judging it. And clarity matters because vague pain often turns into resentment. But clear longing can become prayer, conversation, discernment, and direction. The second practice is to ask, where have I been hiding? Have you been hiding your sadness, your spiritual growth, your disappointments, your loneliness, your need for tenderness? The capable woman often hides in plain sight. She keeps moving, she keeps doing, she keeps managing, she keeps answering, I'm fine. Usefulness is not the same as intimacy. Ask yourself, have I been hiding? What would it look like to bring one part of myself back? The third practice is to bring back one true thing. Not everything, not the entire history of the relationship, not every disappointment you have stored. One true thing that is enough for the beginning. Maybe you say, I have been feeling lonely lately and I'm trying to understand it. I miss talking to you about things that matter. Or I know we handle life well, but I want us to feel closer than this. There's a part of me that has been changing, and I want to share more of that with you. Or I do not blame, or I do not want to blame you. I just do not want to keep pretending I'm fine when I'm not. And that last sentence is powerful. I do not want to blame you. I just do not want to keep pretending I'm fine when I'm not. That is truth without attack. Before you speak, pray. You may say, Lord God Almighty, help me speak with truth without blame. Help me to listen without defense. Help me to know the difference between my fear and my wisdom, or your wisdom flowing through me. Let this conversation serve what is highest in both of us. Truth without attack. Before you speak, pray. You may say, God, help me speak truth without blame. Help me to listen without defense. Help me to know the difference between my fear and your wisdom flowing through me. Let this conversation serve what is highest, the greatest, the best in both of us. That prayer matters because the energy you bring into a conversation rise before your words do. And when Claire finally spoke, her partner did not respond perfectly. He looked uncomfortable. He was quiet. The old part of Claire wanted to rescue him from the discomfort. She said, "Never mind." She paused. She let the silence be there. After a moment, he said, "I did not know you felt that way." Part of her wanted to say, "How could you not know?" But the wiser part of her said, "I think I have been acting like everything is fine. So I understand why you may not have known. But I do not want to keep doing that." That was a progress moment. She did not attack him. She did not erase herself. She told the truth and stayed present. Now I want to return to the original ache. Have you ever sat beside the person you love and felt more alone than if you were by yourself? If that question touched something in you, hear this. The loneliness may involve the relationship, but the first healing moment begins inside your own soul. Not because everything is your responsibility, not because your partner chooses, not because your partner's choices do not matter, not because you should settle for emotional crumbs, but because being seen begins with refusing to abandon yourself. And when you keep saying, "I'm fine," when you are not, you teach the relationship to organize around a smaller version of you. And you keep your soul small, silent, until it can no longer be silent and it comes up as an ache or disappointment or as pain. So when you hide your longing, you may avoid conflict, but you also block intimacy. When you silence your soul to keep the room calm, the room may stay calm, but your heart becomes restless. That restlessness is not your enemy. It may be the discomfort that says, come back to truth, come back to your voice, come back to the woman God is forming in you now. The goal is to help you become more honest, truthful, clear. The goal is not to turn every ache into an argument. The goal is to help you listen for what your soul is asking you to stop ignoring. This week, begin gently. Ask yourself, what am I longing for? What is one true thing I can bring back into the room? And if this episode touched something in you, write down one word that describes how you feel in your relationship right now. Just one word: lonely, hopeful, tired, curious, afraid, ready, tender, invisible, awake. That one word may become the doorway into your next prayer, your next journal entry, or your next honest conversation. If you feel led, you can share the one word in the comments, not to explain the whole story, not to expose anything you're not ready to share, but as a way of saying, I am telling the truth to myself now. Feeling alone in a relationship that looks fine can be confusing, but it does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you are ungrateful. It does not mean love has no future. It may mean that the relationship is being invited into truth. It may mean that the version of you who kept everything pleasant is giving away to a woman who wants something more honest, more soulful, more alive. Next week, I'll go deeper into the patterns, why we keep choosing the same kind of love, the same kind of dynamic, or the same ache, even when we promised ourselves we would do something different. Until then, be honest with yourself about one thing that may be the first opening into your relationship at a newer level. Something to think about. Bye for now. And you can find my podcast episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and at drjudithmla.com.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.